Hello, everyone. Thank you for standing by and for joining us today. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you that this event is being recorded and it will be archived on bpnews.com. I'm Jessica Phillips. I'm the editor-in-chief of Butane Propane News. Thanks again for joining us and welcome to Right Message, Right Customer, Segmentation That Delivers, which is sponsored by Navara Marketing and is presented by Butane Propane News. Today's webinar is going to explore how better marketing starts with better segmentation, and how by using your back office software to pull customer lists based on the services they do and don't have, you can send messages that actually resonate. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers, Andrew Maderia and Brett Lewis. Andrew and Brett are both co-founders of Navara Marketing, having merged Maderia Group with L4 Group after a decade of collaboration. As a downstream fuel marketing and growth strategist and an industry speaker, Andrew has spent more than a decade driving growth for fuel and propane dealers, building sharper marketing strategies, streamlining customer communications, and positioning companies to win in competitive markets. Brett leads strategy and positioning for energy and service brands, and with over 15 years of experience in digital marketing, he specializes in building systems that drive measurable growth through brand clarity, SEO, and customer-focused campaigns. So at this time, it's our pleasure to begin the webinar. Please stay tuned after the presentation where we'll have our interactive Q&A session. Throughout the presentation, we welcome you to send your questions for Andrew and Brett through the Q&A feature on your screen, and we will get to as many of them as possible. We'll also have a few poll questions for the audience to answer, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on those. And if you notice the emoji reactions at the bottom of your screen, we encourage you to interact with our speakers that way as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Brett to get things started. Brett?
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks everybody for taking time out of your day, mid-month, October 15th, and just about to embark on the busy heating season. So looking forward to that. And let me just advance a slide here. And we're going to start off first with just polling you guys and asking a question. How do you currently segment your customer list? And please take a minute just to go ahead and fill that in. And while we're waiting on that, Andrew, do you want to just inject anything here?
I think one of the reasons that Brett and I have put so much, equity in segmentation is when we first got started, a little over 10 years ago, we met in an e-commerce engagement for online fuel sales. And the platform that we were utilizing for that particular, initial client that we started working together on really segmented out the different types of customers and prospects. And we saw such value in that. So when we continued to do, more marketing on the full service side, on the service side and stuff like that, we just wanted to continue to utilize, the segmentation process that we saw value in just on the e-commerce fuel side and take that to the heritage side. And it's been fruitful. It's continued to prove value time and time again. And the deeper you'll learn today, the deeper segmented you can get with your marketing and communications, the better the results are.
Yeah. And we've got some responses coming in. You can continue to fill us out, but I'm going to go ahead and take a look at where we're at here. So 18%, we don't. We send to everybody. We see that quite often, actually. 36% by service or product type, 54% by customer type, so residential or commercial, and then by engagement, 18%. That's good. And then other. Would be interested to see what that other is. But let's dive into here because we're going to talk about some of this in a little bit more detail. So we do see customers of ours that when we first engage with them, that they have a practice of just sending the send all, like just hit the button, or a very rudimentary segmentation. I'm going to send everything to residential customers, or I'm going to send everything to my commercial customers. And that's the limit of their segmentation. And they wonder why their open rate or their engagement rates just aren't as high as they should be or could be. So this is where we're going to get into. And Andrew, do you want to jump in on this one?
Depending on, what back office system you have, I'm not going to name them all out there. Everyone on this call probably knows the bigger players, and then there's some smaller players. There's some new players, which I think I saw, one or two of those guys on the call today, that are in our industry that are special, that have a specialty back office system specifically for fuel dealers and HVAC companies. And when we first get into an engagement, we ask, what does your customer data look like? What kind of data points do you have for each and every one of your customers? And we start to analyze that data and take a look at, which data points they have, whether they have a service contract, how old is their heating equipment? Are they, obviously if they're will call or automatic, and things of that nature. And if we don't see a ton of like the deeper segmented data, what we'll do at that point is we'll send out a customer survey to everyone, and we make sure that there's some kind of reward for filling out the customer survey, and that way we get a little bit deeper data and details on each customer, so we can start that segmentation process. But the process really starts with knowing what the customer list, what your prospect list hold for data points, and we really try to steer clear of that, like Brett said, that send all button, and start to segment out, right off the chute.
Exactly. And here's some example campaigns that we could run with the right types of segmentation. So sending out a campaign to service plan people who have not enrolled yet, right? So we're sending out, another thing that we might do is have a budget plan scenario where in the off season, when the plan is closed, we have a wait list that people can opt into. And then we essentially are able to then send out an exclusive invitation to those people who are on the wait list as we open up the budget plan for the season. So when you do that kind of segmentation, it gets really, really high results, great metrics. And then you can tap into, like Andrew said, we'll run a survey. And some of the questions that we'll ask in the survey might be equipment-based or needs-based on the fuel side. And then we can cater follow-up emails throughout the season based on those survey responses using real data from customers. Okay, so let me advance on. So we can touch on this a little bit. So why does segmentation drive better results? I mean, I'm sure you experience this as a consumer yourself. If you go shopping, let's say Home Depot, and you go to Home Depot for certain pieces of equipment, tools or materials, but you never go into other parts of that store. And now you start getting a bunch of email because they're just doing a send all to everybody. And it doesn't pertain to you, you just ignore it. You don't open it. And if it really annoys you, you'll mark it as spam or you'll unsubscribe. That's what you want to avoid with your database. So having that direct message to the people, having the right message at the right time to the right consumer is extremely important. And that helps keep your database clean. It keeps your open rates high. It keeps your engagement rates high. And it keeps, more importantly, the unsubscribes low. And most importantly, it keeps the spam complaints to a minimum. You really want to keep that spam complaint down because you don't want the quality score of your domain be associated to spam. Andrew, you want to touch on anything else on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on pretty good, but just like the bullets there are pretty self-explanatory. But just matching, the right message to the right customer or the right prospect, and catching them, at the right time. Obviously we're in a very seasonal business. For some of the folks on the call, it doesn't pertain to everyone on the call because I know everyone's spread out across the U.S. But for a lot of people, we're in a seasonal based industry when it comes to the fuel and some of the service and install side. So just crafting the right message at the right time to the right customer is going to create more conversions more frequently.
One other thing too is based on your tech stack that you have implemented, right? If you're using a platform that's a little bit more sophisticated on the email side of things, you can actually program it to send messages based on the behavior of your customer as they interact on your website. So you can actually send an email message to somebody who's visiting a certain portion of your website that might be price sensitive, and then send the appropriate message around pricing. So that gets a little bit more sophisticated, but again, extremely effective and well received from the recipients. All right, let me move on to the next screen here. So now we've got another poll. So go ahead and take a minute to fill this one out. So which part of your customer communication is hardest for your team? And Andrew, you want to talk about this a little bit while they're filling out the question?
You know, crafting the right message, you know, I think is timely, right? And, you know, and having continued monthly, weekly, you know, meetings to talk about, hey, like it's gonna get cold next week, or it's gonna get cold next month, or hey, we're coming up on air conditioning season, or it's budget season, like making sure that, you know, the people that we work with let us know, like, hey, what's coming down the pipe, and then we craft ahead of time is usually the result for the best.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me, I see that people are submitting their questions here, so let's advance here. So yeah, deciding who to send messages to, 10%, coming up with the right message. You know, sometimes you get writer's block, I know that. Staying consistent, that's a big one. We didn't touch on that yet. And measuring what worked. Okay, yep, so we can talk about that. And finding the right mix of promotional communications. So looks like measuring what worked is one of the bigger challenges here. And that is, again, not to harp on this too much, but if you're not segmenting correctly, right, then that will be hard to do, right? But when you measure, or when you segment your message correctly, and you have call to actions in your email, because we see that mistake as well, right? People might send out a great segmented email, right? But they don't have call to action. So now, what do you measure? All you can measure there is a open rate. But when you send the right message to the right audience and you have call to actions throughout that email, now you can start measuring which call to action drew the most. So not only are you looking at the open rate of the email, but now you're looking at the click-through rate and which clicks generated the most activity. And then you can get a little bit more sophisticated in your next email blast. If you're going to do a follow-up email, you can, if you notice that the clicks that generated the most was at the top of the email, they might have generated the most clicks just because of the positioning, right? So now you can start looking at the message and the crafted, you know, the paragraphs and the call to actions and say, well, what if we move the call to action that we really wanted to happen, which was 2 down below the one that actually happened the most, and move that up and see really what happens at that point. You might be surprised at the results.
Brett, we had a good question come in, and we can just list a few of the platforms that we use. The question was, well, which email service provider do you recommend for more advanced targeting? There's a number of different platforms out there. You know, I would say that we cater our services towards ActiveCampaign. You know, there's HubSpot, there's Constant Contact, MailChimp, but they all do provide the KPIs that you need to be looking at. And, you know, open rates, click-throughs are probably your top KPIs. You really do want to watch, like Brett was talking about, your unsubscribes, your spams, you know, and stuff like that. But one of the reasons we like the platform ActiveCampaign is it gives us some deeper KPIs, like Brett was saying. So like if someone clicked in a certain spot on a certain button or in a certain message, we're able to craft the next follow-up if we want them to create more action beyond what the original message was. So, you know, those are what we call automations, and they're behavioral based. Again, it's comes back to the, you know, why we're here today is segmenting out. So, you know, automations drive kind of like the behavior, of the customers and the recipients of your emails really drive our execution, you know, on the segmentation and automations.
Another great feature of ActiveCampaign is, and I look at ActiveCampaign and HubSpot as 2 of the more powerful solutions that are out there available. ActiveCampaign is priced at a price point much more affordable than HubSpot. They're both great tools, and they both have their strengths, so don't get me wrong there. But one of the things that you can do is they have AI built in, and when you're sending out your messages and you're using an automation in ActiveCampaign's world, it learns the behavior of the recipient. So if my behavior as a recipient is that I open my emails traditionally between the hours of 7 and 9 in the morning as I'm getting my day started, and that's where most of my email activity happens, it learns that, and then the next email that's sent to me from that platform will be positioned to be sent at that time frame because it has the highest deliverability and open rate, right? So that's a nice feature that ActiveCampaign has, and we utilize that quite a bit.
And just to follow up on that, we have the ability to turn the predictive sending tool that Brett's talking about on and off, because if we're sending an email that requires a phone call in, we don't want the predictive sending to send to Mrs. Jones at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night when your sales rep or your CSR is not able to take that call, and it's going to your what you call it, your call house or whatever. So being able to take that predictive sending tool, turn it on and off is a really, really nice feature. And again, it really pumps up your KPIs and gets your message to the customers you need.
Yep. All right, awesome. So, a question we get a lot is, what's the best way to reach customers? Should we be using email? Should we do texting? Should we do both? So Andrew, do you wanna dive into this one?
Sure. So our industry, I don't know if everyone on this call will agree, but I feel like our industry has always been a little bit behind when it comes to adopting certain communications and stuff like that, whether it's technology or or marketing, in certain kind of optimal ways. But what we've started to do over the last 2 years is we've really used email as a place for promotions, actionable items and stuff like that. Whereas we're utilizing text right now to warm up customers to that type of communication. So for example, your tune-up has just been complete. Your delivery is on the way. Your delivery has been complete. So they're communications that are wrapped around things that are actually happening between you and your customer. So just being able to kind of warm the customers up in a text message capacity is where we've been spending a lot of that time. The other thing that we've been doing just to kind of minimize any opt-outs on the text side is we're sending out email communications to batches of customers and driving them to segmented landing pages that ask the question, would you like to receive text messages about promotional campaigns that we are running or we will be running in the future? So we're asking them in advance if they want to receive those. And if they don't, then we mark them as do not text for any promotional stuff. But we've been actually pretty surprised at the amount of people that are opting in for promotional text messages within the client base that we work with.
Yeah, and it's key to make sure that you're warming that list up so that you're not doing the send all text out to the entire database with some promotional items, because that you'll get people to type in stop, and again, you don't want that on the texting side of things either. All right, I think we got another poll coming up here. So yeah, what is your biggest challenge with online reviews and managing your business's reputation? So as people are filling that one out, I'll start to talk a little bit about reputation management. I like to call it reputation marketing because we want to build a reputation, but we also want to be able to market that to attract new customers. And I also look at this as a first line of defense for, let's face it, if you're in business long enough, you'll get a negative review. So the stronger that your online reputation is, the less impact a one-star review will have, because the aggregate rating, So think of it like this. If you have 10 reviews and 9 of them are 5-star reviews and 1 of them is a 1-star review, that one 1-star review has a bigger % impact on your overall rating. If you have 1,000 reviews and the majority of them are 4- and 5-star reviews, and you get that 1-star review, it has very, very minimal impact in the aggregate rating. So really a huge, play in the review side of things is to really focus on consistent, gathering reviews and building up as many as you can. So now let's go to the results here. So the biggest challenge is getting customers to leave them, catching unhappy customers before they leave. So nobody had that as a challenge, responding to reviews, and then using reviews in marketing. Okay, great. So do you want to start this one? You want me to start it?
Go ahead, Brett. You can start this one.
Okay. So the challenge in getting people to leave reviews is, first off, have a system put into place, right? So we use several different systems. One is a proprietary system that we've built in-house for ourselves that we open up to our customer base. And then another one is a third-party solution that we've utilized. And there's a lot of solutions out there, but the key to whatever solution you use is to make sure that you have it as part of your regular workflow. If you leave it up to the consumer, you're just not going to get the volume of reviews that you want. So I'll walk you through a real simple scenario. You can literally send out review requests via email, and you can do that on a regular basis, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and target, let's say it's equipment installation, right? So you can target customers that have just had equipment installed. And if you have a level of sentiment of how that job went, then you can say, okay, these 10 customers, really great experience this past week. Let's send out the review request to all 10 of them. And that could be automated, and it could be done. I find that the best thing to do is, as the business owner, to assign somebody within the company a responsibility of having that as part of their job. So in that way, you're ensured that it's going to happen week in, week out. Andrew, do you want to add anything to that one?
Yeah. Well, one of the other platforms that we use, that it's not our proprietary way, but it's a vendor that we've used for almost 7-8 years now. But it's a company called Nearby Now, and what this does is it puts the review request on the service side in the hands of your techs. And it's really, how much you can get your techs to participate, in the platform, because we have found in the companies that have their techs that are constantly doing the review requests that their review volume skyrockets. And, we have one of the clients that we work with, on the screen here, and her opt-ins for her techs is right around 80% of them that are asking regularly for reviews. I found being on site at a gazillion different, fuel companies and HVAC companies that we work with and have worked with in the past, that the techs, when it comes to the customers, the techs are probably the most trusted person at your company, that the customers feel as though are going to guide them in the way that is best. They're the ones that are in their home doing service work, install work, fixing problems, emergency service. So the trust really at the highest level when it comes to your customers is in the techs. So when they're asking for a review, the customer is so much more likely to leave a review, especially if everything goes well. They put their booties on. They left the area cleaner than when it was before they got there. They were quick. They were diligent. They gave the dog a biscuit. I mean, there's so many things that the techs do that customers love. So that's the other platform that we use. But again, it's a buy-in on your tech side. And if you can figure out a good promotional, plan for your techs on them, getting them to participate on the Nearby Now platform, your volume and reviews will skyrocket, I promise.
Yeah, yeah. If you use some kind of spiff, it really works well. The other thing that really works well is when there's a public acknowledgement of all the great work by the business owner across the entire team, because that's kind of like, a that boy, you're patting them on the back in a public forum. We have some clients that do a really great job of that, and it really helps motivate the team and want to, get that kind of praise as well. The other piece that I'll touch on with the reviews is the timing matters, right? We have data that shows that when the review request goes out at the point of impact, so this is where using a system like Nearby Now comes into play, where the tech is face-to-face with the consumer and is asking for that feedback point in time. The response rate is huge. If you wait 24 hours, that drops significantly. And then if you wait a week longer, it even drops that much more. So timing and the right message, but the right timing plays a big factor in this.
Yeah, the conversion rates that Brett's talking about are like at point of impact, roughly 40 to 45% opt-in when the tech asks at the time of service. Brett, there was a question that just came in. Constantly struggle to get reviews, but feel like I'm imposing on my customers. What tips do you have? I would say that I wouldn't feel like you're imposing on your customers. Everyone asks for reviews, no matter what you do. Today, I feel like whether you're ordering off Amazon, you go to a restaurant, you use Resi, use Open Table, like it doesn't matter. I feel like anything that you do these days is really, people are looking for customer feedback. So if you're timely about it, you're going to get a good volume of them. If you're waiting a little bit longer, your opt-ins are going to probably drop a bit, but I wouldn't feel imposed, on the customer base asking for reviews.
Exactly. I mean, Andrew, you and I, we've trained hundreds and hundreds of techs on soliciting for reviews using the platform Nearby Now specifically. And, I like to say when I'm training the tech is you're in front of Mrs. Jones. And it's a real simple, hey, Mrs. Jones, we'd love to hear your feedback. And you're waiting for the response. If she says, sure, no problem, you follow that up with, great, what's the best way to communicate with you, email or text message? And it just flows naturally at that point. But it's a real simple, and I like to use the word feedback instead of review. That's a personal thing, but again, just really simply, hey, we'd love to hear your feedback on how we're doing. And then just to touch on texting, again, follow up for review request via text message is great as well. I mean, it's easy for someone to leave a review on their phone, and you're not asking them to take a lot of time out of their day. So this is a great implementation of utilizing text messaging to garner that review.
One last thing. I think I don't know if we missed this, but following up and answering your reviews, and not just the bad ones, is huge. Like the people that leave reviews, especially the people that are like rated, as big Google reviewers, they have like a score next to their name on, how many reviews they've left, and and the different types of industries they've left reviews in. Following up on their reviews is huge because they get that notification that you've responded to their review. And again, don't just follow up on the bad ones, follow up on the good ones too.
Yeah, exactly. And here's just a little, I know we're not talking SEO. Here's a little SEO tip for everybody, a little bonus. When you're following up and leaving a response to the review, right? You'll notice that people, I'll just use the example of a heating system tune-up. And again, Mrs. Jones leaves a review, hey, Bobby came out to my house and did a great job taking care of my heater. Now, you might want to inject a little bit more keywords into that so you can reply back and say, hey, Mrs. Jones, we're so excited to hear that Bobby did a great job performing his annual maintenance tune-up on your gas heating system, right? So now I just injected a few keywords into that. And that's really important because it helps get your Google business profile popping in map searches. And the more you have variety in the terms that you're utilizing in things like responses to reviews, the broader the the net is, if you will, that you're casting for people who are searching for your business using all different types of phrases. So just a little SEO trick there. Okay, and I think yeah, we're at the end here. So any other questions that came in? Or feel free to go ahead and ask us questions. Use the, there's a box somewhere on your screen that you can input. I do see a question around, let's see, where did it go? What's one small automation we could set up in under a week that makes an impact? Andrew, anything come to mind on that?
So
I can think of a whole bunch, so.
Go ahead. If you got one, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things is that when we build websites for our clients, we drop forms on a lot of the different pages, and those forms are specific to each of the pages. So one of the things that I would say is to take a look at your website, and instead of just having a generic contact form and then using that contact form everywhere, if you have a stack of pages or a series of pages that talk about propane delivery, have a propane form, and then that automation that is tied to that is responding back to the person who fills the form out very specifically about propane delivery. And then to couple that, we do something else where we're identifying if it's the first interaction of the person with your website from a form submit point of view. And then we will do a follow-up email after that form response. And that follow-up email or series of emails basically is working as an introduction of the brand to the consumer. So that's a great automation. It's easy to implement, and it's nice because it feels more connected when you're talking to that consumer in the first interactions with the brand.
I mean, right off the top of my head, one that you can set up pretty quickly would be your new customer automation. That, especially right now, we're going into season. 3 or 4 touch points. Thank you for choosing ABC Propane as your propane provider this winter. Just as a reminder, we're coming out to drop propane tanks or swap out propane tanks from either your previous provider, or we're coming to drop one in the ground, or whatever the case may be. And then the next communication is, thank you again for choosing ABC Propane. Just as a reminder, we do have all of these services available, just in case maybe the CSR or the sales rep didn't go over, all of those alternative services, whether it's duct cleaning, generator service, HVAC, service and install. Just you keep reminding them, through that workflow, and then you time those communications in a way where the last one to go out is after they've had a delivery already, and that's when you can ask for a review. Exactly.
Here's one for you, Andrew. I don't think we answered this one. What's a realistic starting point if we've never segmented our list before?
So I'm going to answer that 2 ways. One, because there might be people on the call that don't have HVAC service departments. Maybe they're just a fuel only company. So I would say the one that you could do if you don't have an HVAC service part of your business, just continuing to attack in an elegant manner and in a timely manner your will call lists. And talking to them about what automatic delivery is about, and I mean the big concern for will call customers is that they're, obviously they're price sensitive, right? So, what does it mean to be an automatic delivery customer? Talking about that peace of mind and that, the worry of not having to think about, checking your tanks and calling for a delivery, or if there's a storm coming. And, every will call customer, as everyone on this call knows that has a fuel company, when the storm's coming, all of a sudden the phone rings off the hook and they all need fuel. So I would say that would be, one for fuel companies. And then on the service side, one to get going right out of the chute would be just look at all of your autos that don't have service contracts, like especially the ones that are on budget. Did you know you could wrap in a service contract for $9 a month or $12 a month or $20 a month, whatever the case may be. But just reaching out to the ones that are on automatic that don't have a service contract.
Exactly. Here's another scenario that we come across. It's not a questionnaire, but just something triggered my mind. We handle acquisitions really well for our clients. I lost track of how many acquisitions we've done, but there are always situations where our client, the acquiring company, is acquiring a database of customers that is severely lacking in emails. So Andrew, do you want to touch on, how do you handle that scenario when we want to get emails because they are the most cost-effective way to communicate to the customer base?
Yeah. So obviously for anyone on the call that's done acquisitions, the letter goes out. We've recently merged, and we don't like to use that acquired word. We don't want to say, we're handing the reins over, which essentially you are. But our company is merged with XYZ. We're excited about it. We're big on the handshake photo, the dual branded trucks next to each other, just to show the unity in that. And then we drive to a designated landing page on the company that is doing the acquiring. And that landing page does a couple things. One, introduces them to the acquiring company. And two, we usually give away something, whether it's 100 gallons of fuel once a month to one person for one person that's opted in, Visa gift cards, Amazon gift cards, we'll get creative, with it, because we want to give people reasons to opt in. And it also is a nice feel-good moment for those customers coming in. It's like, oh, wow, what a nice way to be welcome into this, new company. And then, back to segmentation and automation, Brett will build, and his team will build automations behind that form submission, just letting them know, hey, everything's going to be great. And also, guess what? You have an opportunity at all these new services too. And maybe they came from a company where there was just fuel delivery. Now they can get HVAC service and install, generator work, service contracts, and stuff like that. So we'll use traditional marketing to drive to, designated landing pages and really try to get people to opt in, and maybe ask one little question, and get a data point out of them. Would you enjoy having a service contract if they haven't had one before? Do you utilize automatic delivery? So anything we can get for data points on the way in is ideal for us.
Absolutely. All right. I think that might do it as far as questions go. Andrew, anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up here, or any last questions anybody wants to submit?
No, I'm good. I appreciate everyone's time, especially taking it out of the middle of the day. I know everyone's getting geared up, ready to roll for heating season and stuff like that. Good luck, everyone. Hopefully we have a nice cold winter, yes, and we can all, get our desired margin, and everyone walks away nice and happy.
Cold temps and minimal snow.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you to Brett and Andrew. Appreciate you guys sharing your expertise here today. Everybody, that does wrap up our Q&A and also brings our webinar to a close. So we want to thank our sponsor, Navara Marketing, for the great information they've shared with us today. And thank you also for your questions. You can download a copy of this presentation and access playback of today's webinar at bpnews.com. So thanks again to Andrew and Brett, and to all of you for joining, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.